I haven't posted a video in a while, so I decided that I was going to make a video on my 1993 Nighthawk 750 versus my 2003 Yamaha FZ1. So this bike has been pretty good to me. It has 14,000, almost 15,000 miles on it, which I've only put about 1,000 on myself. So this bike, it has given me some trouble, like randomly it had 2 gas leaks, which just randomly seemed to fix themselves. And another problem that just randomly fixed itself is that it didn't want to start, like the battery wouldn't connect, so I'd have to smack the side of it, as I'm going to show later on, but I'd have to smack the side of it for the battery to reconnect so I could actually start it. And the power numbers on this bike are kind of inconsistent, like some websites say 47 horsepower, others say 68 horsepower, but it has enough get up and go, and it's probably going to be the fastest thing you have ever driven in your entire life. So respect this thing, even though it's a beginner bike and only 750 cc's. Well, that's what it claims. The actual number is 736 cc's, and the seat height is only 31 inches tall. So this bike feels extremely small to me. I found a way to jerry-rig my phone to my chest so that I could do a test drive, but I can't figure out a way to do that. I tried it once and it went awfully. So let's just get a sound check of what this bike sounds like. So here I am sitting on the bike. As I said, the seat height is only 31 inches tall, and I'm only 5'10", so I'm not super tall, but I can flat foot this bike easily. My knees are bent a little bit, so if you're shorter, then you could ride this bike just fine. You don't really have to worry about being too short. And putting my feet up onto the pegs, they're comfortable. I can ride like this for a while, but my knees are more bent and I'm more cramped up than I am on my FZ1. So if this out of the way, now it's time for the FZ1. The FZ1 is a completely different beast. Like where the Nighthawk had a 736 engine in it, this has a 998. But you're probably thinking, oh, that only makes 80 horsepower then, since the Nighthawk only made 60. And you'd be mistaken. This bike makes 150 horsepower, which if you don't know a whole lot about horsepower, an everyday car that weighs about 3,000 pounds could use this engine and drive around perfectly fine, and it would be a pretty decent car. This bike can go from 0 to 60 in 3 seconds, while the Nighthawk did it in 4.5 seconds. And this bike is utterly ridiculous. There is no reason why I should have gone this bike as my second. So, with that being said, how about we listen to this beautiful beast purr? Let's just hear the power, why don't we? This bike gets just as good gas mileage, if not better than the Nighthawk, because the Nighthawk got about 42 miles per gallon, and I think this gets about 42 or 43. So let's get a sound check real quick. I could have revved it up more, but I didn't want to piss off my neighbors. But past that, this bike has almost 25,000 miles on it, and I drive it way more than I do the Nighthawk. And this bike has given me zero trouble. The year that I've had the Nighthawk, I've only put about 1,000 miles on it. I've had this bike for about 3 months, and I've put over 1,500 miles on it. And like I've said in the past, there's no reason why I should have a bike like this. There's a thing that sport bike riders refer to as warp speed, where you accelerate so fast that your brain can't comprehend and you feel like you're going at warp speed. So here's a story about warp speed, just on a daily basis and how easy it is. If you look at the rev line on this bike, it's at about 11,500. Somewhere around there, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less. But sometimes I'll be following someone at about 50 miles an hour, and I'll be in top gear and decide to pass them. Which at this moment, my bike would be at about maybe 3,000 RPMs, so it is not in the rev range at all. It does not have a whole lot of power, and it's also in top gear, so the gearing ratio isn't good, and it doesn't make as much power as it would in first or second gear. But I decide that I'm going to pass the person anyways. If I did something like that on the Nighthawk, then I might go 60, maybe 70 miles an hour if I was lucky. But on this bike, if I do something like that, even though I've severely crippled it, I could get up to, I don't know, 90, maybe 120, but usually more around 100 miles an hour, just passing someone, just in the next 4, maybe 5 seconds, basically doubling the speed limit. And that's at its worst. That's it being crippled by my irresponsible choice of rev range and gearing. But yet it still has that much power. So I would hate to see how much it would be at if I was at an optimal gear in first or second and decide to do that. And my conclusion for this video is never get a leader bike because you will die.